club, together. We are proud of who we are and what we do. We are a founding member of the Football League. We are 1884. We are positive, inspired and passionate. We are now. We are moving together. We are ambitious and driven. We are progress. We are change. We are prepared, honest and humble. We are the highs. We are the lows. We are the heartbeat of our community. We are the famous black and white. We are the dreams come true. We are the club of opportunity. We are the memories. We are the yet to come. We are Derby.
Hello and welcome to the preview show from RamsTV. Derby County back in action today after the international break. The Rams on the road at Shrewsbury Town a little later. Probably a good job that Derby are away from home this afternoon, given the water levels around Derby this lunchtime. But enough of the weather forecast. Let's kick off by checking on the League One table. No game for the Rams last weekend, of course. 4 games did go ahead, though, and that has affected Derby's place in the standings just a little bit. They've slipped to 9th, though they are just 2 points off the playoffs and do have a game in hand on 5 of the 8 teams above them. 2, in fact, on Stevenage. Portsmouth and Oxford United continue to lead the way. We find Shrewsbury, today's host, in the bottom half, though they are 6 points clear of the relegation zone. Cheltenham still prop up the table, though Wigan and their points deduction aren't too much better off. We'll get some general thoughts on how League One is shaping up a little later. But first, Craig Forsyth has started every single league game for the Rams this season. He's worn the captain's armband for the last few as well. And at 34, Fozzie was glad to have a couple of extra days off this week.
Yeah, I think obviously age is playing on my mind. So yeah, it was good to have a few days off and let the body recover from what had been a few tough games.
Are you noticing the body sort of deal with things differently as the years go on?
Yeah, probably a little bit more. Yeah, you have to take a little bit more care on the recovery side. But yeah, it still feels good and I'll keep going.
Does it become a bit of a dialogue with the coaching staff and the medics and stuff about what you need to do to prepare for the games?
Yeah, I mean, I've never sort of said, oh, I need an extra day off or anything like that. I prefer to keep training, but you notice it more after a game, I would say, is that your body takes a little bit more to recover. I
wanted to ask you, actually, a couple of weeks, months on from the testimonial and a lot of the events that you did, how do you sort of look back on it all now? Because I've always got the sense that you don't love being centre of attention.
No, yeah, that's true. I'm not one for being front and centre, but that was a good thing to do, and I certainly enjoyed the day, my family enjoyed the day, and it was something that we'll all remember.
How did you handle the attention?
It was one day, wasn't it? One day. So you try to take it all in and enjoy it for what it was. And I tried to do that, and I think I did as well. I think the family enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, we know the story about Monad Waghorn being involved with that, and then the part that's played in getting him back at the club. But Bradley Johnson's around the building as well. The three of you are really good friends. How's it been having them back around the building?
Yeah, it was a bit funny the first few weeks, obviously. Brad back and then Waggy back. Yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's familiar faces for us. I think for them as well, they don't feel as though the place has changed too much. There's still a lot of familiar faces for them, so it's all good. You obviously spend a lot of time with each other here and away from the pitch as well. We do the same.
Team went unbeaten from the last international break to the previous international break, and you start again at Shrewsbury on Saturday. Give me a sense of how you will feel about the run that you're on at the moment and where you are in the standings. I
think there's a small bit of disappointment in there. I think the points that we've collected, although we've been 7 games unbeaten, I think we should have collected more points, and I think that's where the disappointment lies. But everybody is saying the same thing. We all expect better, and we should be taking chances, keeping clean sheets. So we're all on the same page.
There's been many times during your Derby career we've talked about home form being fantastic and away from home being a little bit more difficult. This season things are the other way round. Yeah. Have you got any theories as to why, particularly away from home, you've been so successful?
I couldn't put my finger on it. I think it's possibly away from home teams maybe try and bring the game to us more, and we can show quality on the counter-attack and pick them off. But at home, it's something that we've talked about as a group, is we need to kill teams off when we are on top and take our chances. And once we get that goal and get in front, then the game changes and we can hopefully control it and see it out.
Craig, Forsyth there. Yeah, plenty for Derby to improve on at home, but no such issues on the road for the Rams. Only Barnsley have picked up more points than them in League One so far. Derby have also scored in every single away fixture in League and Cup this season. We are about a quarter of a way through the League One campaign now, so we thought we'd get an expert's view on how things are shaping up. We've asked Joe Townsend, the football editor at Sporting Life, who's impressed him so far.
I'd have to say Oxford, to be honest, Owen. There was plenty of chat in our office last year about whether Liam Manning ever should have left MK Dons, a really good reputation as a progressive coach in the EFL. And to be honest, it hasn't turned out very well for MK Dons since they got rid of him. Sacked Graham Alexander this week. Now they quickly replaced him. And now he's been given a little bit of time. They scraped to safety at the end of last year. And I've managed to see them a couple of times this season. And the thing that really stuck out for me is that no single player really jumped out as being particularly outstanding. And it was also quite hard to work out what formation they were playing, sort of flipping between a back four and a back three. And that usually means that it's a coach who's kind of got their team playing really well or in the way that they want. And then they've won 9 of the last 10 games after losing on opening day. So, I mean, Portsmouth were already on a brilliant unbeaten run at the end of last season. So for them to be top and still unbeaten, getting on for 25 league games now, they are the 2 outstanding teams in the league so far. But Oxford, I think they've got to be the real picks, getting up to sort of a third of the way through the season.
And there is a little bit of a gap between the top 2 and the rest. Not the same sort of gap that we saw between the top 3 and the rest by the end of last season. But Portsmouth and Oxford, are they going to be tough to catch already, do you think?
I'm not sure about that, to be honest, because, you know, the succession of matches that happen in League One, then it looks like a team are particularly out of reach, and then it just closes up so fast. It's not seemed that way so far because there's been plenty of teams that have put together winning runs of 5 or 6 matches and not made any headway because of those 2. But I don't think that they'll sustain that for the entire season. They're running really, really hot at the moment, but they're not going to get 120 points. So I would envisage that the way, if you look at the table down to sort of like 9th place where Derby are, then it's kind of starting to take shape with the teams you'd expect other than Stevenage. And as the season progresses, then there'll be teams that'll have little dips in form. But that's what's particularly interesting about Oxford doing so well, that the rest of the table, it's pretty boring in terms of there not being any massive shocks so far.
We're always interested to get a neutral perspective on Derby. 7 unbeaten in all competitions, 5 unbeaten in the league, although I think everyone would want more wins than they've had in that run. What are you making of the Rams at Sporting Life?
Yeah, we like him, and we really like Paul Warne as sort of a wider football editorial team. And I think it just take a little bit of time. And I know football fans are not always particularly willing to give managers time to get things going. But that's what it always seemed like, that it was just going to take a little bit of time. And we were talking about it on our podcast earlier in the season, that it was actually really refreshing to hear Paul Warne speak so openly about the fact that he didn't want to overstretch the budget. He wanted to be really careful about the signings that he was going to make. He could have rushed and brought in loan signings at the end of the window, but that wasn't what he wanted to do to build the team. And then when someone's looking at that longer term approach, it is probably going to take 4 to 6 games at the start of the season. You might be able to scab a few results and then you build that bit of momentum, but it is starting to pay dividends a bit now for Derby. And you would anticipate that there will be one of the better teams in sort of the top 3 or 4, and now, within touching distance, win at the weekend and they could be in the top 6. And that's where we anticipate them being in the top 3 or 4 come the end of the season.
And we'll finish with Shrewsbury, Derby's opponents on Saturday. Change of manager in the summer, maybe not made the start that they would want. What are your thoughts on them?
They can't score, Owen. They just can't score any goals. 6 goals all season in the league. And I feel like it was spoken a lot about like budgets and finances. And last year, I think Shrewsbury spent the most money they ever have in a single campaign. So they had to redress everything behind the scenes. Steve Cottrell went out. Matty Taylor came in to try to look at cutting the cloth accordingly. And that's meant that, as you would expect, they've got an inferior playing squad as to what they had last year. It's interesting to see how they've kind of adjusted the style of play a bit, because they've had a fairly easy start in terms of schedule, actually. So for them to be right down at the bottom already would be a slight concern as a supporter base. But I saw them at the back end of last year and they were so physical under Steve Cottrell. I mean, I think they picked up 6 or 7 yellow cards when I saw them. They had a red card in injury time. And they seem to have gone back to playing more of a direct style of play after the first 3 or 4 matches. But I don't think that's how Matt Taylor would want to play. I can remember him first going into the coaching side of things when I used to cover Northampton Town 4 or 5 years ago. A bit longer, actually, putting an age on myself, about 7 years ago. And he was talking then that he really wanted to be one of those coaches that would build from the back, possession-based style. But I don't think they've got the players for it. So I'd expect them to be a team that's going to have 30% possession, sit in, try and frustrate Derby, even though they're at home. And if they can nick something on the break, then fine. But they've only scored 6 goals in 12 games. So you would expect that against a team that's much more powerful than them, it should be a game that Derby can come through fairly straightforwardly.
Joe Townsend's view on League One so far this season, and today's opponent Shrewsbury, who have really struggled for goals so far. They got one last week, Taylor Perry's late equaliser, earning them a point at Cambridge. 3 of Shrewsbury's 4 wins so far have come at home, including on opening day against Cheltenham. They finished 12th last season, but have seen plenty of changes since then, with Matt Taylor replacing former boss Steve Cottrell. So no international break for the home side. Derby were able to get a couple of extra days off. Here's boss Paul Warne.
Yeah, really good. Give them an extended weekend off, which is good. Came back in on Monday. Everyone was very chatty, like the first day back at school. Like everyone's, what'd you do? And training was really bubbly. Really pleased how they've trained this week and building up for the weekend and looking in good fettle, because we've got, Saturday, Tuesday till 2028. So, we're looking good. The lads are really bright. Which you would expect me to say. I wouldn't come on here and say, they didn't try a leg, but they were really good. And we had to try and not go over the top because we haven't seen them for a few days. That's always tempting, but we didn't. We kept the training down, so to speak, but it was more about, what we're going to do in the final third. So it's been good.
The injury list was long. It's been getting shorter. How is it looking now?
Yeah, moving in the right direction. We haven't injured anybody else on the positive, so that's good. And obviously Callum and Warne have been involved in full training. The other ones are getting closer, so moving in the right direction. So yeah, pleasing, because we now really have 20 first team players available for this weekend, which is great.
was going to be the next question. How complicated is that making life for you when it comes to picking?
Yeah, it isn't easy. Like everyone who's at the club, everyone I've signed at the club, I haven't told them they've come here to not travel on the bus or to not put a shirt on. So, however, in equal measure, it's like tough, isn't it? That's how football is. You know, the best players, we try and pick the best 11 we see. We're lucky that we see the players all week. We speak to the players, we see the opposition. We get a good feel of how we think we should play. So we pick the team on that, we pick the subs on that, and and everyone has to fight for places. So, you know, Warne and Callum have to fight to get back in. That's how the world works, and it pushes everybody up. It keeps the 11 on their toes, that is for sure. Because I think previously we've had a few times where we've gone Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, probably haven't made as many changes as I would like or as I should have possibly. And we've looked a bit fatigued, whereas having this amount of players is good news, and it enables us to change it a lot more freely and keeps competition for places, but I think you can drive standards a lot more.
Busy couple of weeks coming up, starting with Shrewsbury on Saturday. You faced them a lot in your career. What do you make of the latest version of them?
Yeah, as every team in this league, really, on their day, they can cause you problems. They've always been a really good home side. I've managed there. I'm not even sure if I've lost there. I think I've won a couple of times and drawn. I've never had an easy game. I've lost 4 there.
You've won 4.
Oh, when you done that, I thought I lost 4. I thought you were either doing that or sooty and sweeps.
4 wins against them. 3 have been there.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's quite good then, isn't it? But then, as with everything in life, nothing lasts forever. But I've always found them a really difficult side. I've always found that their home crowd really get behind the team, and it makes it difficult. And I know they haven't really been conceding goals, but they haven't been scoring loads like us either, in fairness. And I do know that the difference between the bottom of the league and the top of the league is minuscule. Like we drew with Portsmouth, who haven't lost a game yet, and I thought we should have won it. And we drew with Cheltenham, both opposite ends of the scale. So we don't underestimate them. We know how they have played. It doesn't mean it's how they're going to play. They do a couple of things that are different to other teams. I don't want to say it now because it's a problem, but a couple of things that we've been showing the lads today in the meeting, and we'll go out onto the pitch today. But I'd like to think the best version of ourselves will give them a good game, and hopefully we'll come out with 3 points, because we need to perform at a level to win games.
That's Derby boss Paul Warne. So far, every League One fixture has survived the weather, so all 12 scheduled games look set to go ahead. Leaders Portsmouth still unbeaten, host Carlisle, second place Oxford welcome Blackpool. Barnsley are at Leyton Orient, and Peterborough, who are 4th in the table, they face Wycombe. And in Shropshire, Derby County take on Shrewsbury Town. Overseas viewers can watch the action in Matchday live from RamsTV. Get your Game Pass now at dcfc.co.uk. We're with you from the usual time of 2:30. Until then, goodbye.